So to get started, I want to call up the executive director of the Center for West Park. Did I get it right here? Okay, great. Who was gracious host to us last year, and we're so happy to be back, or maybe a year and a half ago. We're so happy to be back. So, Debby Hirshman, take it away.
So you're going to learn something about Debby Hirshman. One second. Hi. Hi, sweetie. I got to call you both back. So, ever since I started working more than 40 years ago, there was one rule I've always possessed, and you just experienced it. Then I was a single mom with a newborn, and anytime a phone call came from her, I would pick up the phone. Now, she's clearly no longer that age, but when your 43-year-old calls, and you know that she's in St. Petersburg with your 10-year-old grandson who swam his first national swim meet, you pick up the phone. Because it's that moment, and you all probably know that it's more rare that you get the call from the 43-year-old than when they were 10, 11, and 12. So I always pick those up, but today was a particular occasion, so forgive me, and I will take one story on this. There was a person in an audience who raised their hand and said to me, I bet if you were sitting with a potential donor and your daughter called you, you wouldn't pick up the phone. Thankfully, there's a name you all may know, the Furmans. Roy Furman was very involved at Lincoln Center, the creation of the Film Center. His wife, when we were building it, and I had the privilege of founding and building the JCC, he was one of the early people I went to meet with on Fifth Avenue. I'm sitting in this beautiful living room, and Elisheva calls. By then, she's calling from college, and it was like, Roy, Frida, can you forgive me? It's my daughter. So I go in, they say, I go into the dining room, I speak to my daughter, I come back in, and I said, I'm really sorry. They turned to me and said, we liked you before now, we like you even more now. And left with a very generous gift. The point being, living out our values and being authentic, which is what all of you do. And you're here because you are cared to protect New York. We're all here, and I'm here as the executive director and privileged since May of 2023, and some of you heard this last year, and someone asked me a question because they thought this whole challenge was over. You all were offered a button if you wanted it. If you came in after, there'll be buttons and the petition in the back, so if you want to sign the petition, which is now up to 7,000, which will be used because the developer and the church who made a deal during COVID, right? The West Park Presbyterian Church and Alchemy, the developer, made a deal during COVID that the church would go before landmarks and say, and this is COVID, remember, the building is not usable, it's dangerous, it's rat infested, never saw rat, and we can't afford to maintain it, it's not maintainable. Sidewalk shed that you walked under 23 years has been here. The first year we came here, which the first benefit was November 2023, and we thank Mark Ruffalo, Kenny Larrigan, Matt Damon, and Missy Yeager. Why did they do it? There was a benefit. They did it because they are very committed to preserving a sacred landmark and understand that community arts and community gatherings like this have to have spaces like this. The ability to say, yes, you can come here. Or in fact, a pastor called who has a new church in Long Island City who wants to have a Friday night once a month. Being able to say, yes, we can rent that to you at a rate that you can afford, as long as it's available, is what the difference is. That's why they got involved. Fast forward to next Monday night. I don't know if you all saw the sign. Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, Fisher Stevens, Bobby, and I'll get his name wrong, Bobby Carnavelli? Thanks. Richard Kine, all of these actors are doing a screen reading of Network. And they're all doing, Juliana Markley, they're all doing it to save this building. Right, your mouth is open because literally, that's why they're doing it. right? They don't need publicity. They do know that for this message to get out and for everyone to become aware of the truth about this building, only they can attract the publicity. And that's why they do it. And it has had a profound effect, because last year when we spoke, the developer and the church withdrew their request for landmarks. But if you read the newspapers, they said, we'll be back. And on what basis are they trying to come back? They have spent time, and continue to bring other lawsuits so that we won't have the right to our lease. Yeah, I'm watching the faces. So, and you of all people would understand how terrible this is. And yet lawsuits cost a lot of money. They keep bringing them. We then have to spend the money to protect this. If you ever hear that we're out of the building, I do want to assure you that even if the Center West Park is, if they somehow win, we will continue the fight for land. We will take everything and continue in different places, clearly much harder. But we all have a responsibility at this point to help ensure, and that's why the petitions and the buttons, to ensure that the city, the government, everyone knows this is not COVID time anymore. Your secret is now out. We did a scan. We raised $8 million to take down the sidewalk shed. And fix the facade, the gutters, all in accordance with the Landmarks rules. The Landmarks turned to us and said, you gotta get the church to sign the documents. Guess what? Church won't sign the documents. So the neighborhood continues to have a sidewalk shed up. The money's raised, and this is what's going on. At the same time, fast forward to all the young artists who are still getting to use the place, all the places that get to rent or not pay rent or pay a modest rent, all of that continues to go. So every day, just like Joseph Papp, who began here, and God's love we deliver, every day people's lives are changed and people connect to one another. That's what community is about. I thank you all for wanting to come back. I look forward to being here with you next year. If we're not on site, I look forward to your meeting wherever I am and wherever the Center West Park is. But as I said to Lawrence Fishburne, and again, when I drop these names, they will all tell you that when Lawrence Fishburne was introduced to me, I said to him honestly, I said to Mark Ruffalo, who's Lawrence Fishburne? And I tell him that because I really don't know these people. They don't compel me for that reason. They do compel me because their hearts and souls have committed time to be here. And I said to Lawrence when I met him, he said, so we're going to save the building. I said, I have no question that this building ultimately won't be demolished. There will be skirmishes along the way. And he turns to me and said, I'm really up for skirmishes as long as we win in the end. So there may be skirmishes. I will say there's one caveat. If there's total corruption, and if there's all of that, then my statement that will save the building may be false. Otherwise, we got it. So thank you all for being here. The in the back, for anyone who didn't get to sign it, as will the buttons, feel free to take them and share them. And thank you for giving me the time and opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one or two questions for Debbie. Yes, Ann.
What does
Stand up, identify yourself.
Ann McDermott. What does Gail Brewer say?
Gail Brewer has been adamant along the way and supporting the center and its landmarking in 2010. And in fact, I talked to Gail 2 days ago. Gail knows the challenges, and she can't influence landmarks. She does talk, there's a new set of deputy mayors. Manash Shapiro, who lives in our neighborhood, is now the deputy mayor working on this. She does her job, but the impact has to be that all of the proof, and I met with the deputy mayor Torres before she stepped away, all of the proof has now shown that there's no basis for a hardship. We've also made it clear know it's 34 million. We are talking to people to raise 34 million. We don't want the church to lose either. If they need 34 million, because that's their deal, we'll get it for them. So they all know that, and time is on our side because more people join, as well as more people who want to give the money. So it's a combination, and it's been one of the most successful organic processes, because it's all been organic since the day this started, really back in May. I mean, it's been going on, but May 2023 was the real pivotal moment. So she's behind it, and now Mark Levine is behind it before he became a candidate, as well as Brad Hoylman, also before he became a candidate. So they've all made their positions clear. But it takes a lot more than that. It really does. I mean, I didn't know any of this, but I learned it quickly. The JCC, when I had the privilege of founding and building it, had none of this. So, and yet I say to everyone, and this is what we should keep in mind, if in the 90s, it cost us $95 million to build the JCC, the ability to preserve a building forever for 34 million is a bargain. Any other questions?
Yes, Mike.
Denise, you had, Mike's forward, you had Peg Green here.
Yes.
How does that translate?
Peg gives a very forceful voice
Yeah.
that has gotten me charged. See, the problem with people like Peg, they've been fighting these preservation fights for so long, including this one. They get tired. Now there's more support. She's right there, and in fact, it's very beautiful. Landmarks at their big event that I learned about at the Plaza is honoring Mark Ruffalo and Kenny Lonergan for their work on the center at West Park. And the well, if he's being honored by them, she didn't ask me about that one. But so is, and this is very important, so is Darren Walker. Now Darren Walker is the head of the Ford Foundation. What happens now is that we can go to Darren because all these people are being honored together and talk about the center in a new way. So it's all linked, but it takes that. You can't assume any one person or organization. That's what's been beautiful. I mean, we continue circling the square. They have a school, and I met with their dean because they're going to start partnering with us here, right? So it's all about those things that then doesn't let the city or landmarks. But they didn't have that in 2022, so we're not blaming anybody. Now we can all blame ourselves if it doesn't happen. Any other? These are great
We
questions.
have time for one more question, if anybody's got a question for Debbie.
I'm really grateful if people ever want to volunteer. It's a wonderful way to see the shows. If anybody has questions, it's really easy. You just write info@center@westpark.org. It's on everything you see, and it's answered every day by me.
So before we do anything else, does anybody have an empty seat next to them? If they do, please raise your hand. We got a couple people in the back. So
One right here.
yeah, we got, just keep your hands up so these folks know where there are seats.
Thank you. Sorry I can't stay, but I have another program, so forgive me. Hi, thank you.
No, no, hold it. Okay, great.
You got one over here.
Okay, I think we got everybody seated for now, but we might do that again if we have a few latecomers. So again, thank you all for coming out tonight. Got a few things we want to address in the president's report. Like everybody else in our business, the board has been monitoring the news that have been the news stories that have come out lately, projecting big losses in the tourism industry due to the policies of the Trump administration. It's already affecting international inbound tourism, and if a recession ensues, which some economists are projecting, it likely will affect domestic travel as well. One firm, Tourism Economics, is projecting that international inbound travel to the U.S. will drop 15% this year in 2025. At the start of the year, they were projecting like a 9% increase. So that's a net almost 25% decrease in what they were projecting. They estimate that's loss of revenue of about $22 billion for the year, and that could lead to an overall drop in spending on travel in the U.S., both domestic and international, 4.1% lower than baseline expectations, representing about $72 billion in total travel expenditures. Advanced air bookings between the U.S. and Canada, which is the #1 source for international travel to the U.S., have plummeted by more than 70% for the summer flying season. Many of you saw the article last week in the Times about the drop in tourism from Canada. Matt Levy, a member, was quoted in the article. They have reached out to GANYC and the PR committee. Jeremy referred them to some guides and operators. So, you must have also seen the letter to the editor of the Daily News, who was posted online as well, from Luke Miller, the owner of Real New York Tours, talking about the steep declines he is seeing from his international clients. So if it's affecting one tour operator, it's affecting all. I wish I had more encouraging words, I really do, but it's difficult to know what to say. I've been in the business since 2010, so I've been through the downturn due to Hurricane Sandy, due to COVID, some of the first Trump administration. Other veterans who are in the room have been doing this for a longer period than me, remember the aftermath of 9/11, and also the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and how this affected the tour business. But with all of these, with the possible exception of the early days of COVID, the light at the end of the tunnel soon emerged. It's hard to know when the current situation, though, will hit bottom, and how long it will take to rebuild trust, particularly with international visitors, if and when the current situation ends. So all I can really offer at the time, right now, is the line that was bandied about a lot during COVID. The obituary of New York City has been written many times, and we're still here. People are fascinated by the Big Apple. They always will be. So I have faith that at some point cooler heads will prevail and tourism numbers will rebound. But in the interim, it is more important than ever for our members to support each other and for GANYC to support our members during this difficult time. That's why we made the decision to dedicate the last portion of this meeting tonight as an open forum to talk about the issues that are affecting us as an industry because of the current administration's policies. This is a chance for you to talk to us about what you would like to see GANYC do as an organization, but also for a chance for you to bounce ideas off each other and support each other, as unfortunately it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Okay? Now, there's one very important thing we have to mention though. This is not a session to criticize the current administration. There are plenty of other forums to do that. We all have places where we can voice our political discontent. We want this to be a positive, forward-looking, proactive, and fruitful discussion. So any political diatribes will not be tolerated and will be stifled immediately. Keep on topic. We want to talk about how this is affecting tourism and what we as an association can do and what we as working tour guides in New York City can do to support each other. So I thank you in advance for respecting that, and hopefully it will be a meaningful discussion we'll have at the end of our meeting. Moving on, last week we sent out a membership survey to all active GANYC members, and I really want to urge everybody to complete the survey. It takes about 15 minutes. There are a lot of questions, but we know your time is valuable, but we only do this once every 2 years, and it really is vital for the leadership of GANYC, both the board and the committee chairs, to kind of take the temperature of the association, of the membership, and see how you think we're doing and what we can do better. Both the board and the committee chairs worked for several weeks to hone the questions, to try to narrow down to the questions we think will yield the best answers. As of this morning, we've had 22 responses. Not sure if that's good or bad, but it's 22, but I'd love to see a lot more. And so I sent out another blast this morning. I understand one of the questions is a little wonky. If you get to, I'm going to try to fix that tonight. It was just brought to my attention today. But if you get to the question, it's one of the questions with 3 different options, right? Your first, second, third choice. If you're having trouble, just select all the columns for the third choice after you select your first 2, and that'll let you proceed forward. Okay, I do apologize for that. I mentioned this last month, but we're sending this out for a few reasons. We want to find out what you think of GANYC, what we're doing well and what we can do better. Also, we want a better understanding of how GANYC is perceived as we advance on our project to rebrand the association. We want to find out how effective you think our communications are with all of you, our membership. And lastly, we want to find out a little bit more about you and your involvement in GANYC, as well as the guiding industry, so we have a better sense of who our membership is. All responses are anonymous, so you can be as honest as you like. You can tear me a new one if you want. You can do that to my face too, I don't mind. But we will, once all of the results are shared, we will compile them and share them with the membership, both at a meeting and in kind of an email blast report. The deadline we set is Monday, April 7th. We'd love to have people respond by then. If we need a little bit more time, we'll keep it open a little bit longer. So please, 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 15 minutes out of your time. It would really help us out as we chart the future path of the association. Next up, the WFTGA 2026 convention. Registration information is expected to be available at the end of April. And as soon as we get it, we will share it with everybody. I will tell you, just on a couple of chat groups that I'm in, there seems to be unprecedented level of interest in attending the conference, at least amongst US-based tour guides. For those of you who don't know, WFTGA is the World Federation of Tourist Guide Associations. It links all the different tourist guide associations in all the different countries together, and they have their conference every 2 years. Next year, February 2026, the conference is in Fukuoka, Japan. And the main convention will be from February 9th to the 13th. Pre-convention tour will be February 5th to the 8th, and the post-convention tour February 13th to the 17th. If none of you are that familiar with it, the tours are booked kind of separately from the main convention. So you don't have to book to go on the tours if you don't want to, if you're just attending the convention. I don't think you can book the tours without going to the convention, though. I think convention attendance is mandatory. Information is available on the WFTGA site right now. There's a link, a long link that'll be in the minutes and in the blast that we send out with the text of these remarks. But the easiest way, just go to WFTGA.org, click on activities, and then under that there'll be a button for conventions, and right there, whatever current information about the 2026 convention is there. There's also a sign up for their convention newsletter, which will be a more efficient way for you to get news about when registration is open than coming from GANYC. So I encourage you all to sign up for that. We will likely be offering stipends for some members to attend the conference, but that doesn't get decided until we do the budget for our next fiscal year. So do not sign up saying, oh, I know I'm going to get a stipend, and then you don't get it, and then you're out this money and you can't afford to go. Only sign up for the conference if you know you can cover the whole cost on your own, and then hopefully GANYC will be able to supplement the cost for some of you. Okay? But it's a great event. I've been to 3 of them. I'm hoping to go again in February. It's really an amazing chance to network with and really learn best practices from your fellow tour guides from all around the world. Next up, I want to thank somebody who's here in the audience tonight, Ronald Hornendijk. I hope I finally said that correctly. Ronald had offered to chair the Multilingual Guides Committee, but unfortunately, for various reasons, he's no longer able to serve in that capacity. So I want to thank him for stepping up initially, but that means we have an opening for a committee chair for the Multilingual Guides Association. And it's so important for us to have an active Multilingual Guides Committee, as it's our very roots. We started as the Multilingual Guides Association of New York all the way back in 1974. And now, especially as international inbound tourism is under threat, it's more important than ever that this become a vibrant and functioning committee. The good news is, as the committee has been pretty dormant for the last few years, whoever takes over this committee, it's like a blank canvas, blank slate. You can shape it in any way you like, but it is something that we're looking for. So, and of course the board will support the new chair in any way we can. So if you're interested, or you know anybody who you think might make a good Multilingual Guides Committee chair, you can email us at board@ganyc.org. But I just want to give a round of applause to Ronald for giving us that. Okay, just 1 or 2 more things, my friends, before we wrap up my portion of the meeting. The weather's getting warmer. Not today necessarily, but it is getting warmer. And I've certainly seen it myself. I'm sure you all have. A lot of other guides out and about working, right? We're like the groundhog. We come out, you know, as the weather gets warmer. So what I wanted to do, though, was just have a quick reminder about good guiding behavior. There have been several comments about this online. There have been several conversations I've had with other guides. This is far from a comprehensive list, but I just want to give you all just a few things that have been discussed and just things to think about. Number 1, be respectful to your other guides, to other groups, and the general public. Nothing gives us a black eye more than when we get in the way of the general public. Don't stand in front of monuments, plaques, or other areas of interest for long periods of time, preventing other tours and the general public from accessing these sites. You can easily do commentary a few feet away and let your groups go and explore, examine the plaque, examine the historic site. Be mindful of where you position your groups. Don't block sidewalks, transit access points, or doors to businesses, apartments, and hotels, and especially don't block street corners whenever possible. A street corner is never a good place to give commentary. I'm amazed at how many times I see guides giving commentary literally on a street corner, and it's almost impossible for other pedestrians to get by. Also, if you see a guide standing somewhere with a group, and it's a place that you normally like to do part of your tour, be flexible. Move a little bit further away, and choose another spot to talk, one that is far away so that your commentary isn't interfering with their commentary, and vice versa. Just be flexible. Be mindful of other groups on public transportation. One of our members posted this. This time of year, many large student groups use the subway to get around. So if you see that a car has a large group in it, you can tell when there's a student group in the subway car when it pulls in the station. Don't try to cram your group into the same car, especially on the numbered line trains, okay?
Stay away from the one line.
Yes. Move to a different car if you can, or wait for the next train. There's always another train coming, okay? Lastly, don't correct other guides in front of their clients.
No backseat tour guide.
Yeah. If it's such an egregious mistake that you feel you must give your 2 cents to that guide, find a time when that guide is not talking to their group, and then offer constructive criticism. This also applies to addressing guiding behavior. If you see someone who's standing in front of the Hamilton grade for 15 minutes talking to a group, as tempting as it is, you don't want to say anything right there and then. I might be guilty of that myself. The second part, not the first part. Try to find an appropriate time to talk to the guide to say, hey, this really wasn't fair to other groups and other members of the public who wanted to see this, et cetera, et cetera. So I know it can be stressful when you're on tour, and we all fail to live up to these standards from time to time, myself included. But by being mindful of how we conduct our tours, we can promote a better perception of tour guiding and of GANYC. And the last note on this is the board has been working on a document that offers best practices for various types of tours. They're recommendations. They're not going to be gospel. They're not going to be, the tour guide's Bible. We're hoping to get that out in the next month or two. It's going to focus on different types of tours, just little helpful hints, especially for those of you who might be newer to the business. But in the meantime, just use your common sense, be respectful to your fellow guides and to other visitors, as well as the residents of New York City. GANYC should set the example for what good guiding behavior is. Last, it's been a tough year on the health front for a lot of our members, and I hate that every month we feel the need to pass the hat, but we're there again. Jojo Landon, who is a member of the executive board, a member at large, and also a longtime GANYC member, last week was diagnosed with a detached retina, and on Monday had emergency eye surgery to correct it. He's facing a 4 to 6 week recovery period, and he also reported to me that his insurance company did not cover the cost of the surgery. So in addition to the financial burden of losing income, he's also paying a lot of money out of pocket. So in the great GANYC tradition of taking care of our own, we want to pass the hat, the proverbial hat, it's really a bag. Sarah has it right now. If you can help Jojo out, please do. We don't expect you to contribute if you don't have the means to, but if you can, it would be greatly appreciated. I want to remind once again that the GANYC board made a decision last year not to offer matching funds anymore for these purposes. The board made this decision both for reasons of,
You know what to do when it's in the back, pass it across the aisle and bring it back up to me.
Yeah. So we made that decision for fiscal responsibility and fairness reasons, but that doesn't mean we can't support our own when they find themselves in bad situations, as we've unfortunately had to do most months this calendar year. So we encourage you to give whatever you can to help Jojo. If you don't have cash on you, there will also be a link to our PayPal account posted to the GANYC Facebook page for the next week, and you can contribute electronically that way as well. So, and please give if you can. I'm sure we all dread being in situations like this. So that is my president's report. Obviously, we'll circle back later to start the jam session, whatever you want to call it, the open forum about the future of the near and long-term future of our industry. But before we keep moving forward, anybody have questions for me? Okay, great. So, with that said, without further ado, we're going to move on to our guest speaker. And to introduce our guest speaker, I want to call up Lisa Puccio from the Education Committee.
Glasses, clear throat. All right. I cobbled this together
hope it's all true, Markley,
I'll
but I
correct
can
you.
say it's all good,
Okay.
okay? Now, also as a disclaimer, there's some words here that have like 24 letters in them. And to pronounce them, it really gives the mouth to work out, up, down, and all around. So I'm apologizing in advance if I get a little tongue-tied, but I'll do the best I can. I'm gonna try to speak a little slower than I normally would, so you can understand me. All right, so here we go. Tonight's guest speaker, Markley Boyer, is a multidisciplinary artist and designer specializing in landscape visualization, photography, and CNC carving. To help people understand and connect with the natural world, he integrates data from remote sensing satellite imagery, drone flights, combining multispectral elevation and geological information to create compelling visual and tactile representations of landscapes. His projects include working with the Wildlife Conservation Society in Gabon, Africa. He was there when he heard about the Mannahatta project and he volunteered to help out. It was kind of sweet. Utilizing his expertise in combining science, art, and technology, he reconstructed Manhattan's 1609 ecology for the book Mannahatta, the topic of tonight's talk. I would like you to join me in welcoming Mr. Markley Boyer.
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. Am I loud enough in the back? Yeah, good. As long as the neighbors upstairs don't keep going. I was thinking it's such a New York situation, under threat by developers and noisy neighbors. It's kind of a classic New York story. Thank you for the introduction. That was 100% correct. Yeah. The internet's a wonderful thing. I'm gonna talk about Mannahatta. Do you all know the book Mannahatta?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. I hope if you don't know it, you will become more interested in it as the evening goes on, or as my talk goes on. But I might just want to say off the bat, the reason I'm here is because my partner, Victoria Johnson, was a guest of this organization a few years ago, and she wrote this book called American Eden about the Elgin Botanic Garden, which is the botanical garden that is under what's now Rockefeller Center. And a great book and a great read and a great weird bit of New York history if you don't know it. In fact, the last book talk she gave on that talk, she gave at Rockefeller Center underground by the skating rink. So actually underneath where the garden that she wrote about would have been. It was very tricky. And this is a picture of her in the Manhattan Borough President's office, first seeing the Randall Farm map of the Elgin Garden. Am I blocking people? I can probably move a little bit. Okay, at my limit, yeah. She is she's teaching tonight, but she teaches at Hunter, but she's teaching, she's got a new book that's about to be finished on Frederick Church, the great Hudson River artist, and who built the house Olana up the Hudson, and was a great New Yorker, helped found the Metropolitan Museum of Art, belonged to the Century Association, was a member of the 10th Street Studio building, if you know that building, that building is on 10th Street. Anyway, so that's just a shout out to her. This is my talk. It's in the, I use this software, which is particularly good for maps, because it lets you kind of move from place to place, but just let me know if you want an air sickness bag. Gonna talk about how the whole thing started, the kind of details about how we made it, and then sort of the long-term impact of it. You mentioned Gabon. I was working for the Wildlife Conservation Society in Africa and on the west coast in a country called Gabon. And Gabon is covered with rainforest, so it's very hard to do aerial photography there because it's always clouds. So I didn't really know that much about mapping, but I started tinkering with software that lets you take kind of data coming in from various places and make it look like photos to help people kind of understand terrain. So this is synthetic. It's made from satellite data and elevation data, but it kind of gives a sense of how the landscape works and where stuff is. This is another story that, if you have things to talk about, I can give you the backstory. So, let's start with the data. The whole project started when I met this guy, Eric Sanderson. He was kind of the GIS, landscape ecology, but knew a lot about GIS at the Wildlife Conservation Society. So when I was working on the Africa project, I was in touch with him periodically. And one day in the cafeteria at WCS, which is up at the Bronx Zoo, as you all know, he said, I have this idea to reconstruct the plant lists of Manhattan Island in 1609. And his story was that he was from California, grew up in the woods, grew up hiking. He got this fantastic job in the Bronx, and he thought, where am I going to find my wilderness? So he thought and thought and thought, and eventually bought a copy of this book, which came out in the mid-2000s. And in that book, they reproduced this map called the British Headquarters Map. And this was a map, I think our screen is not great, but that's right. This is a map that the British had put together in the 1780s when they held the island of Manhattan. You know, we think we kicked them out in 1776, but as you know, they hung on here for quite a while. And they were the best cartographers in the world, and they had nothing to do but sit around and map the island for the purposes of defending it against the colonists trying to take it back. I'm sorry, the image is not showing a lot of the juicy detail of the topography. So it was a shaded relief map. They didn't have topo lines. This was before they invented topo lines. So it was a shaded relief map, but it showed a lot of the features. This is, 1780s. It's not exactly 1609, but in the 1780s it had been clear cut, it had been farmed, but the topography was pretty much as is. So for example, this is a series of marshes called the Lispenard Marshes downtown, and you can see cut through the middle of that is a canal that they built to drain the Lispenard Marshes, and that's now what we call Canal Street. So that whole area down there was kind of a low swampy area that drained down to the Hudson River. Up there, you can see this. This is Murray Hill. And unless you're a bicyclist, you sometimes forget that Murray Hill is actually a hill, but it's a hill. And on top of Murray Hill is the Murray's house. That's Mr. and Mrs. Murray, lived right up top with the house on one side and the barns on the other side. You go uptown, that's the Harlem Plains. You can see up for the I apologize for the reproduction, but the Harlem Plains were just a great big flat expanse of agricultural land that the Lenape had farmed, and when the Dutch got here, they thought, oh, this looks like our beloved flat homeland, and so they called it Harlem. They built the little village of Harlem there. There were these two great big rocks that's sticking up out of the ground there, and one of them is now the one that's in Marcus Garvey Park. You go straight up Fifth Avenue, there's that great big centerpiece of Marcus Garvey, but there were two of them side by side, and over the course of the 19th century, the western one got blasted. And then up at the top, of course, is around Fort Tryon. That, as you probably all know, is the area of Manhattan that's sort of closest to what would have been kind of the primeval forest cover. And that was also the Lenape, who had a presence on Manhattan for thousands of years. That was a particularly rich area for Lenape sites. So Eric started looking at that map and thinking, okay, there was a wilderness here, and I can figure out what it was. I can kind of reconstruct it. So the next thing he went to, and again, I apologize, it's bad. These are the Randall Farm maps. Do you all know these maps? These are the maps that John Randall was commissioned to develop in 1811 after the commissioner's plan divided the city up into a grid. So Randall made these beautiful, detailed maps showing every property line, every house, every rock outcropping. And I actually I took the trouble, again, the resolution's kind of crappy. This is the Randall farm map for where we are right now. This is 86 and 10th Avenue, next to Randall Avenue. There's actually a big, there was a big craggy rock right where we are. And then, yeah, you can see a little bit there. There are all the names of the farmers. Oh yeah, that's a little better, thank you.
That's too dark?
Yeah, right.
Is that too dark?
So the farm names, the original plots of land, and then of course, that's where we are. And then this, you probably all know this since you're such New York insiders, but when Randall divided it up in the grid, he put monuments at every intersection. And that was one of the most critical things for us reconstructing the topography, was to have every single block a guaranteed elevation. And we spent a lot of time, on rock outcroppings in Central Park with a GPS measuring elevation, in old graveyards measuring elevation, because that doesn't change, that, from for hundreds of years. But the Randall markers were one of the most important data points. And you may know that some of the original Randall markers, there's one in the Collection Museum in the city of New York, these little marble monuments. Occasionally when Randall was doing his work, he would need to put a marker in a place that wasn't dirt. He would have to put it straight into the rock, and you may or may not know, but in Central Park, there is still I think the location has been kept mostly secret, but there's still an original Randall monument there in Central Park.
Behind the dairy.
Oh, did they? Okay. So from all of that data, and I'm eliding a lot. Eric in particular just went through thousands and thousands of sources. Our GIS file, I don't know if you know what that is, but the Geographic Information Systems that lets you kind of do all the calculations, was literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of layers. But from that, we calculated the original elevation of the island from a combination of the British headquarters map and the Randall map and the Beeley map and all the great maps of New York, and came up with the topography as it would have appeared in 1609. And we had to move back a little bit from the British headquarters map, but we were able to do that reasonably accurately. That's Murray Hill. Let's see, and so once we have the topography, it allows you to start calculating other things. This is the cut and fill. So everything that is red was cut down, everything that was black was filled in. So as you know, it was much more really topography, and the high places got knocked down and the low places kind of flattened everything out. There's a website for the Mannahatta project, which basically for every single block of New York City gives you the underlying data that we generated. So starting with the present day, what's here, the block and lot, but then essentially figuring out for every single block all of these kind of statistics, the minimum elevation, the maximum elevation, what percentages in hilltops, what percentages in hillsides, how many streams there were, what kind of soils there were, what the bedrock geology was. So all of that kind of goes in to the profile of each block, and based on that, based on each block, and based on knowing the soil and knowing what direction it faces and knowing how much rain it gets and knowing what kind of soil it is, then you begin to calculate what plants would have been happy there. And so once you figure that out, you calculate what birds would have been interested in the plants and the insects that would live there. So it's a very long and complex process, but we've kind of boiled it down for the purposes of this website. So you can see the #1 most likely animal for this block in 1609, the meadow vole. Probably it's not, you wish it was the mountain lion or something, but it's the meadow vole, and then the white-footed mouse, and then the deer mouse. But it gives you a very good, picture of the diversity of Manhattan Island. And Eric always used to like to say that if the United States had been settled from west to east, this would have been a national park like Yosemite or something, because it has that range of kind of ecosystems and ecological diversity. It's at the southern edge of the northern flora and at the northern edge of the southern flora. It's in an estuary, so it has fresh water and salt water and brackish water. And it really was quite an extraordinary place. And colonists got here early and started, doing their business. But if it had happened the other way and this was the last place they got to, it might well have been preserved as a park. Plant list, the Virginia 3-seed mercury, the most common plant here, red maple, red chokeberry. A lot of these plants still thrive. Obviously, things have changed, the climate, invasive species, but a lot of the ecology of Manhattan in 1609 is present today. And then, of course, it was a living place for the Lenape, and this is a calculation based on archaeology and various other factors of how suitable this particular block would have been for Lenape habitation. So once we calculated everything, for every 10-meter square of Manhattan, we calculated what kind of ecosystem would have been there. I think there's 53 different ecosystems that are kind of local to this area and specific to different kinds of soils, different kinds of slopes, different kinds of hydrology. So, an oak chestnut forest, or an oak beech forest, or a hemlock forest, or a low salt marsh, or a high salt marsh. And so this map was kind of a master indicator of what would have been where. So once we have that, we go to the visualization side. And this basically takes that map that I just showed you and puts it in perspective. So these are roughly 10-meter squares. This is kind of roughly the area around Turtle Bay, but we could tell what would have been in each of those 10-meter squares in 1609. And then this is kind of a schematic, doesn't really represent anything, but then when you take it into the computer, you put skin over it, you light it, you put land cover, you put ground cover over it, you put trees on it, you put light behind it, and you essentially make a photographic image from that data. So this was this is the kind of master map showing the whole island from above as it would have appeared in 1609. You can see that's the little tip of Manhattan down there. This is Murray Hill, forested Murray Hill. That, of course, is the Lispenard Marshes with the natural drainage, both on the east side and the west side, natural drainage coming down through the salt marsh to the East River and the Hudson River. Up to Harlem, you can see Harlem. Again, our date point was 1609. So of course the Lenape were in full occupation of Manhattan in 1609, and that whole Harlem plain there, we show it as grassland because it was kept open as grassland by periodic burning by the Lenape, and that's one of the reasons why when the Dutch got here, it seemed like such fantastic agricultural land. That's Harlem Creek there. That little dot right there is the corner of 86 and Amsterdam. So there would have been a freshwater stream running down through kind of a marshland into this kind of swampy area over in Central Park. White sand beaches along the shores. So we calculated all that, and and we worked on this for years. We worked on this for 4 years, doing all the kind of calculation work. And periodically, we would tell people, "Oh, we're working on this plant list and species list and reconstruction of the topography of Manhattan in 1609," and everyone would say, "Oh, well, that's very interesting. I'd love to hear about that sometime." But when I had just started playing with some new software that had just come out that let you, this is, a while ago now, that let you turn that data into these kind of photographic images, and I made this image very, very early, and it's, it's still very rough. Some of the things I see in it now are kind of wrong, but we started showing this image around to people, and suddenly people got it. They were like, "Oh my God, I see what you're saying," and I think that there was a way in which the abstract idea of Manhattan as a wild place, and then the kind of seeing it with your own eyes of what it would have felt like as a wild place really made a difference. And at that point, we started to get more publicity, and people became more interested. There are illustrations in the book that are quite good, but in between the time the book came out and we put together a show at the Museum of the City of New York, and because I'm obsessive this way, I decided to redo all the illustrations with some new software that had just come out. So these are images that were not in the book, but that were at the show in the Museum of the City of New York, and these were shown as kind of 10-foot tall transparencies with backlit. So that, of course, lower Manhattan, you can see the Lenape settlement down around the Collect Pond with the smoke rising there. You see all the salt marshes in the evening light. That is, that's that scene that I showed you the kind of schematic of. That's kind of Turtle Bay, and if the projector was a little better, I'd put a little turtle down there someplace. And there's actually, I think there's an eagle in one of these trees, and there's some coyotes running around. Oh, there's the turtle. That is the Collect Pond, which, as you all know, is roughly where City Hall, just above City Hall. That was the freshwater source for Lenape, the freshwater source for early New York until they completely trashed it. That is the little Lenape settlement just to the south of the Collect Pond. And this, you remember before I showed you the Lispenard marshes running down to the Hudson on this side, and these are the marshes running down to the East River on the other side. And I can't remember where the account came from, but we knew, or we had heard, that at certain very high tides, the Lenape were able to kind of paddle all the way across, that they could come up on a high tide up the East River and kind of across the Collect Pond and then down along the Lispenard marshes down to the Hudson River. And spoiler alert, Hurricane Sandy, it almost happened again. That kind of opened up a little finger of water across the island there. That is looking north up towards Harlem from, I don't know, like 98th Street, something like that. And that's kind of a depiction of the Harlem Plains being burned by the Lenape. One of the things that I think made this project work is that because there's so many iconic, I don't have to tell you all, so many iconic views in New York, and you always have the Palisades there, you always have certain things that you can identify it as New York. And I think if we'd done pictures showing like a beautiful woodland and saying this is what New York was like, people, it would have made some impression. But I think being able to see the Palisades in the same image as this kind of forested landscape really helped connect people to the change. That is up at Fort Tryon with the Harlem River there, which used to, I don't know, you probably do know this. I'm just assuming you know everything. But the Harlem River, used to be this sinuous kind of salt marsh channel, and then it was only when kind of industrial shipping happened that they dredged through the whole thing and made it a straight shot. But that little part kind of below, that kind of nestled in there, that was a Lenape settlement, and there are kind of Lenape occupation sites in the caves up along that ridge. And then this is kind of above Times Square, above the Hudson River, Times Square, looking straight east. That's Henry Hudson's ship, the Half Moon, in the foreground. There was a little trout stream that came down from Times Square into the East River, into the Hudson River there. And then, of course, that's Newtown Creek on the far side. And then this, kind of a classic New York view. Again, it's very recognizable, even though everything is different about it. But that's the Hudson River from just above the George Washington Bridge, looking south. There's a very famous painting that some of you may know of John James Audubon sitting on that beach right there. So we actually took, as we were reconstructing that, we looked at that painting very carefully and said, where's the sand and where's the grass? So, and then, we did this, I think the book's gone through a couple of editions. This was the cover of one edition of the book, this kind of split screen thing. And this, this summed it up very nicely. And one of the kind of big picture things I'll say about this is that often when you're working in conservation, it's kind of depressing that, there's the story in conservation is often, here's a place that used to be great and now it's terrible. It was a beautiful wild place and now it's been completely trashed. And so, where you're fighting a rear guard action against various kinds of developers. But one of the great things about this project is that, New York was an incredible place in 1609, and it's an incredible place now. It's just a different kind of incredible place, and I think like being able to see that change and have it change from a wild place to an urban place, and not have that sense of something has been ruined. I mean, something has been ruined, something has been lost, but what we, again, I don't need to tell you, what we have here is as rich or richer in some ways than what we had here before. So anyway, I'll quit my preaching about that. There was a nice National Geographic story which had that image on the cover, I'm very proud to say, and then there was a nice spread inside where we kind of did a fancy version of what we did for the book, which is went up in a helicopter, took pictures of these very specific places, and then did a precise reconstruction of the same view from the same place, and this is a particularly good one. So, just the kind of repercussions of this, some fun ones. The pictures reappear on social media every once in a while. Somebody finds them and they get posted someplace, and I'm always amused by the comments of first person points out that it's fake. Ready to be killed for this broke, it's a fact, okay. Another person pointing out that it's fake because there were no DSLRs. And that is what Manhattan is, a statement of depravity, corruption, greed, and filth. But some of the other things that happen is, this book was not an international smash bestseller, but it kind of went out to everybody you would hope it would go out to. I rarely meet people that are, plugged into New York City that don't know this book. And so it went out to a lot of people that do, landscape architects and park planners and people that, that kind of think deeply about our environment. So, I'm not claiming credit for Mannahatta, but there has been much more interest in reconstructing some of these ecosystems that were lost, partly for old time's sake, but also partly because they're effective ways of dealing with issues that New York has. This is Brooklyn Bridge Park, as you probably know. There's salt marsh there, that's restored salt marsh, and that is providing small-scale ecological services. This is back to Hurricane Sandy when you probably all know that the oyster beds, the massive oyster beds in New York Harbor 400 years ago buffered a lot of the storm surges that were responsible for the kind of flooding we experienced in Sandy. There was a show at MoMA a few years ago kind of about this, about using ecological technology to provide both, beauty and recreation, but also, services, protecting lower Manhattan from storm surges. This was a plan, not built yet, probably never will be, but it's a big idea. So, that's what I got.
Can someone? Yeah, Jeremy's.
Yeah,
there we go. All right.
It sounds like you got a full agenda on how to take.
No, we
questions.
definitely have time for some questions. Again, when we call on you, please identify yourself first and last name. So we'll start with Ronald.
Okay, so I'm Ronald Barnack. So my question is about the Holland plane, and then there's another similar depression on the west side where Dyckman Street.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are natural.
Yeah, completely.
Is there any explanation as to why at that, on 125th we have this beautiful subway bridge?
Yeah,
On the
I
side
would be speaking beyond my pay grade if I said anything too concrete, but just glaciers, alluvial deposits.
Yeah, it's just
natural
really
stuff.
remarkable that like on both sides of Inglewood Hill and
Yeah.
Fort Tryon, it just goes
Well,
down.
that's what I'm saying.
And it's very hard to believe that it's like a natural.
That's completely natural, and we have incredible scenery, and it was even more. These great cliffs and streams and waterfalls. It was all here, and some of them are left. And the further north you go, the more you see of them. But yeah, Harlem was completely natural, except for being maintained for agricultural purposes, not.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Jeff Ryback. Any thoughts with the new technology of doing a revised edition?
Well, funny you should say that. I have a very short attention span, so I am not working on it, but Eric Sanderson left the Wildlife Conservation Society. He's gone, they created a new position for him at the New York Botanical Garden. He's now Vice President for Urban Conservation, and he is hard at work at a gigantic, brand new, it's not quite the same format, but it's all 5 boroughs, and it's kind of a gazetteer and an expansion of this project. He's been working on that for, ever since the last time. And I'm helping him, because I'm working on landscape visualization stuff, and I'm using some very fancy new technology that makes this look like Lego blocks. I'm basically using game engine software, the software that they use for making video games, but I'm populating it with science data, GIS data, and I'm helping Eric and his team use that same technology to do a visualization of this new version. And I think, at NYBG, there's a new executive director there, Jennifer Bernstein, who's really good and really interested in urban conservation. And I think she wants to do something big with this material at NYBG.
Ellen.
Ellen Simon. This might be a little off topic, but I was asked twice 2 weeks ago by people from Wisconsin about New York City sinking.
I don't know about that. I don't know specifically about that, but that doesn't sound right to me. We're on a great big hunk of bedrock.
It is sinking.
Bits and pieces are sinking.
It is sinking.
I'm sure.
Big buildings are
If things
sinking.
things are settling here and there.
Things
Maybe.
are what is rising.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's not our problem. It's like the flood was.
Something came out a few months ago about it.
John. Oh, sorry. John, go ahead.
Yeah.
Stand up, identify
John
yourself.
Sunlight. Can you talk about, the effective changes on topography, but I'm particularly interested, how much in the alteration of the topography of Manhattan do you blame on the grid plan? Maybe blame is not quite the word, but in terms of the impact of that. And could you foresee a way in which Manhattan's urban development happened where some of that topography was better maintained? Like, I don't know, I'm imagining like San Francisco, which still has those rises and falls that could have gone in that direction.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I take issue with your premise. Blame it on the grid plan. I like the grid plan.
Maybe blame's not a great word, but.
Yeah. Well, certainly. It is quite shocking what they did. I live in 123rd Street, in this place called Morningside Gardens. I don't know whether anybody knows it, but, oh, it's a good place. But I did some research about, the Battle of Harlem took place right up there. It actually took place kind of on our campus at Morningside Gardens. And I saw some pictures of 123rd Street looking west towards Grant's tomb. Oh, I have really weird screensavers, so I hope you enjoy them. Looking west towards Grant's tomb, and the place that is like my lawn was like rock that high that just got completely blasted out of the way. So, the grid plan meant that if it like was in the way, they blasted it, and they destroyed a lot of things. But if you're suggesting that maybe they put some of that rock back, ain't gonna happen. I think there's there may be some places where you would take more account of the original feature of the land. I mean, you probably have heard of this phrase daylighting, right? Like a lot of these old streams that, like you all know Mannahatta Lane, right? Mannahatta Stream runs right underneath it in a sewer. But all around New York and all around the world, they're daylighting these old streams that got covered up. Whether, that's pretty radical, but that's the kind of thing I think that could change in response to like sense of what the topography used to be like.
Gary.
Hi, Gary. I don't mean to forget, John, the grid did nothing to you. And to answer your question, look at 96th Street, same thing. It was a bay, Stryker's Bay, all right? So you got like this, like almost like an amphitheater there. There's a book called Measure Manhattan.
Oh, was that the one about Randall? Yeah.
And in the book she says that there are, so you maybe know, maybe this is, again, beyond the paper, right?
Yeah.
More ecosystems here than there are in Yellowstone.
Yes,
Or there were.
that's correct.
And did the island grow by 2,000 acres since 1811?
Yes.
Is that the correct figure? Because that's
Don't know the number. I mean, again, we really focused on 1609, and so I don't know. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if you all, that tip of Manhattan. I mean, the thing. Again, I feel like I'm preaching to the crowd here, but that little pointy thing, the Dutch got here. They got to this continent with 1 billion acres of free land, and the first thing you do is make a tiny little bit more land. Right at the point of Manhattan. It's like they're like beavers or something.
Yeah, they had to put it somewhere. It's like you get out of subway line, you got Riverside Park, so.
But I don't think.
Yeah, put it somewhere.
Yeah. George.
George talking, just a little historic, St. Nicholas Park.
Yeah.
When they moved Hamilton Grange there.
Yeah.
We dug up all the rock, we couldn't get the rock away.
Right.
We were trying to just sell it, no one wanted it. But St. Nicholas Park is the closest to any park in the city with the island looked like. The rock formations up there.
Well, maybe the rock, yeah, but not the trees. The tree cover, those big tulip trees up at, up in Fort Tryon. That's, those are probably not virgin forests. They've probably never been cut, but they feel pretty similar. It's definitely tulip tree habitat, and the size of those tulip trees, they're that big around. They're probably 400-year-old tulip trees, and there were 400-year-old tulip trees in 1609. So that's the one that feels the most like what. Yeah. Again.
Because they were fighting the Park Service putting a house there because of that reason. But so this park is the closest to what Manhattan looked like.
To the rock formations, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, behind the house, right on the south side, yeah.
And to answer your question, I learned this a few months ago about landfill. The whole city is three Manhattan islands of landfill in New York City.
Extra.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helped you a little.
Hardy.
Hardy Fitton, you mentioned the Lenape, and as I understood it, there were a number of Indian tribes, and were they here all year long? Or did they leave and then come back?
There continues to be debate about that. My latest understanding is that it was mostly summer kind of, foraging range. The only place I think that there might possibly have been year-round settlement was up the northern end, yeah. Because I think that, it's kind of, it's cold, it's, you know, there were better sheltered areas on the mainland. I don't know whether that's absolutely current thinking. There may be more of that, but my understanding when we worked on this was that it was thought to be seasonal.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions. AJ?
Hi, AJ. Comment. You got really good sweets and
I'm hoping
I haven't seen one in years.
I'm hoping nothing too weird comes up.
We'll circle back to Ron.
Yeah, there we go.
I have one more, you know, just remark as a question, because, you know, the question about the landfill and the expansion of the tip of Manhattan and the Dutch presence there. Like, as the Dutch, you know, I
Oh, sorry, I
am
didn't mean
Dutch.
to offend the Dutch.
No. I need not take any offense to say anything you want about the Dutch. I will say something worse. I find it very hard to imagine in the only like 40 years that the Dutch were actually here, and they were basically in survival mode for most of that time because there were such limited people.
Yeah.
So I don't really, and the way that land is gained in the Netherlands is so different from how it was done in Manhattan.
Right, 'cause it's
I don't
reclaimed
think
from the sea.
I don't think it happens well, it's actually internal bodies of water that are then surrounded by an earthen wall, and
Yeah.
then the water is drained out.
Yeah.
It's not later on in the 20th century they start to take it out of the sea. But
Yeah.
before
Oh,
that
okay.
it was just internal, and so I don't think the Dutch get the credit of, you know, making the southern tip. I don't think that.
Well,
I find it hard to imagine that they even made a canal running from Wall Street all the way along Broad
I think
Street.
you're just down on the Dutch.
Broad Street.
I was We have time for one more question. Anybody have questions? Emma, this will be the last question, then we do have to move
Emma,
on.
yes, Gonzalez, just about the expansion of Lower Manhattan, because I know a lot of that was also when the British were leasing the lots along the river, and then people would
Yeah.
start expanding it that way. So
Yeah,
also you were taking
I think that there was some kind of economic reason, and I can't remember exactly the details, but it was like if you filled in the land yourself, right? And they would put out piers to dock the ships, and then they would fill in between the piers. Yeah, I think you're right, that there was kind of an economic, you know.
So to piggyback on what Ron was saying, perhaps it's accelerating much more under the British.
Yeah, that might be, yeah. But I mean, the Dutch definitely did some of it, I know from the very earliest maps.
Yeah, they dump their garbage somewhere.
Okay, well, thank you. With so many hardcore New York, nerds. And that's what Victoria and I, we just think about old New York, 19th century New York, whatever. That's all we think about practically. It's nice to be in such great company. And also, it's so great to see your organization. Of course, I didn't even know this organization really existed, but it's so organized and vibrant.
We would like to invite you to join us afterwards if you want. We're all gonna go for a drink if you.
Oh, well, that kind of you. I might have to get uptown, and I'm not sure that I can handle the sad.
Well, you're welcome anytime. We
Okay,
have
well, thank you.
multiple
Yeah.
events.
Good. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to move on with our committee reports, and we only have a few this month. We'll kick it off. I think last month we said we were going to change up the order, right, alphabetically. So why don't we do that? We'll start with IT, Emma Guest Gonzalez.
Sorry, I was just looking at my phone. Everybody is electronically. Hi, everybody. I'm Emma. I've not come to a lot of meetings. I apologize for that, but I'm here to give you a little news from the IT committee. We had an issue with an image on our website. There are companies that scrape websites and look for images, and if they are unlicensed, they ding you with a fine. So an image was found on our website that was from the AP. We're actually stamping this image. So we removed all those images to make sure, to guarantee that that's not going to happen And so the images on the website are just from GANYC events. The AP has not been at our GANYC event yet. They might come to one. But so it's just GANYC images. And those are at the bottom of the page. We have a whole section on the website of gallery of images. So we would like to repopulate it with new images. And also we do need some new images. And so if they're coming from you, we know that they're yours. You're giving us the permission to use them on the website. There's a photo credit at the bottom of the image that will say photo credit with your name on it. So if you have images, I know AJ's got fantastic images, Stan has images, other people take great photographs, please send them to it@ganyc.org. Any IT questions is always there, it@ganyc.org. And we will put your image on the website. And it's cycled through at the bottom, and then we have a whole gallery of it. So images of family photos too. I think that's really nice for people to see the kinds of things that we're doing. Two people in terms of the sort of the tech behind our website, there were some mirror domains that were not linking properly. That's been fixed. Anyone had that issue? We've added GANYC 400 news to the website right up on the front. Whenever any branding and changes take place, we'll be happy to add that. But for now, we have Gary, Shuri, and Kat are working on content and images for the GANYC 400, and so that will appear on the front page with the front slider. And then just if anyone has questions about the website, if you have problems using the website, and if you have problems with your profile, please see me. Mark is actually retired from the website, even though I still ask him for stuff every so often. But if you'd like to help with photos, if you'd like to help on the website, come and talk to me or shoot me an email. I know somebody did email it and I lost the email. I apologize for that. But we rarely have meetings because there's not a lot to discuss, because once the website's chugging along, it's going fine. But if you want to add something, content, things like that, please speak to me. Any questions about IT?
Any questions for Emma? I actually have one clarifying question. So the photos you want from the members, only GANYC events, or you want them to send anything as long as we know it's theirs?
Exactly. Anything, if you have a beautiful photo, like I put up one of my sunset photos from the observatory. I only have like 80 million of them, so that goes up. I mean, anything that you'd like, the things, also I think GANYC events, like fun times with other GANYC guides, that helps, people see the great stuff we do. So yes, GANYC events, as well as just general New York-y kind of pictures.
Any questions for Emma?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I have one more thing to say. This is not related to IT, this is related to WFTGA. If you have questions about WFTGA, you can also ask me, because I'm the area representative for North America. And so when I get news, I push it along too. And there's sort of, there's a lot of behind the scenes working at WFTGA. So if I have anything new, I'll let you know. So if you want to email me about that, it's emma@wftga.org.
I clicked on sleep. Sorry, guys.
And that's it.
Great, thanks, Emma. Good. All right, so since we're doing everything backwards, let's do industry relations next with Bob Yeller.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see so many people here. And even though I know she's not here, I want to thank Debby Hirshman, because she always answers my emails, so I try not to be too much of a pest. So anyway, as I always start my reports, I start with what Harvey's been doing, because Harvey's always been doing something. So it's been a quiet month for us, which has been nice, especially after the Apple Awards that we were very involved in. Harvey advised two organizations separately, Markley Center and PRA, which is a destination management company. Go to the GANYC website to look for our guides to give jobs to. And he always does that. I also want to welcome New York City Megamart has been voted in as a new industry partner. And Almine, which is a travel app, they're currently being voted on. I kind of screwed up when I put the application in. So instead of you having 2 days to vote, you've had about 5 weeks. So they are definitely going to be voted in, and we'll see what happens with that. I'm also very pleased to announce that the New York Landmark Conservancy is now a strategic partner GANYC. As many of you know, we've been invited to their office, 20 people, and we will try to get another visit as well. May membership meeting will take place at Wave Hill in the Bronx. I won't be there. Behave. I also, she left already. I wanted to thank Lisa, because Lisa's been getting us wonderful speakers through the Education Committee. And Nina has a lot of great fans that she's going to list when she gives her report. And in June, we will be at the Brooklyn Heights Public Library. And I also want to thank Amigues Gonzalez, because we've been getting so many applications. I think last meeting I mentioned we've had about 12 new industry partners since the fall. And Emma is the person who posts them for me on the GANYC website. So thank you so much.
Before I add that, just since Bob brought up the next meeting, the guest speaker is Roger McCormick, who's the Director of Education at the Bronx County Historical Society, and his topic is going to be the Bronx during the American Revolution. Questions for Bob? Lee.
Yeah, I'm Lee Hollingy, GANYC Secretary. Could you remind us what an industry partner is and what a strategic partner is, please?
An industry partner is a for-profit organization, a restaurant, an event venue. They charge people to go, and they are making money, so they have an application. They get voted on by the membership, and they pay a $95 a year fee, which
soon to go up.
Yes. Strategic affiliation is not for profit like us, like the United Nations, which has been a strategic partner for the last 2 years. Landmark Conservancy, they are not for profit as well. So anyone, there are 2 separate lists. If you've never looked at them on the website, the drop-down has industry partners and strategic affiliates. Most strategic affiliates with GANYC are the associations that bring us clients to do tourism. SIDA, the Student Youth Travel Association, the International Association of Tour Directors and Guides, and I had to say it now, organizations like that, and that's what the difference is.
And strategic affiliates do not require a vote of the membership.
Yes, that's right, and they don't pay.
But if there's anybody who has an objection to any of our strategic affiliates, I can't imagine you would, but you can always reach out to industry relations or the board, and we will look into it. There was another question. Yes, Emma. Sorry, let me interrupt. The reason I ask you to stand is so people can hear you all throughout the room. So stand while you ask your question.
So my question is about next week on Tuesday, we have the event.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's you guys, or I'm not
April
sure.
8th, yes. Next week, we have an incredible event taking place at the Center for Brooklyn History. It really was organized by Emma, and Gary, you were part of it as well. Russell Shorto is our guest speaker, and it is an organization that they are paying for at the center. They're sponsoring, but we are all invited as guests, and on all of their advertising, it says co-sponsored by GANYC. Also, prior to the meeting is a visit to their library, which is registration only.
And for the Russell Shorto event, it's a discussion with another author, I'm blanking on her name, and then afterwards there will be a book signing. So the doors open at 6. The event will start at 6:30. But you need to go to the Center for Brooklyn History, which is part now of the Brooklyn Public Library, and you register through them. The registration is done through them because it's one of their public events. So the event is open to the public. It's not just for GANYC, but there's plenty of room. I just did a visit to it today. So that's next Tuesday.
Yes, thank you for bringing that
up. And this is in part of our NYC 400 celebrations, not the GANYC 400 celebrations. May we all be here in 400 years, but most likely, who knows. So anyway, so thank you, Emma. Thank you, Bob and Gary, for helping get that off the ground. I'm really looking forward to it, so it should be a great event. Okay, our last committee report for the evening is Nina Mende from Education. Oh, it's not on the agenda, but happy to have you. So you'll be next. Otherwise, I would have called you first, Ann, like we talked about last month.
agenda.
Okay, you can notice that this report is like 2 pages, so,
Wow.
but I'm not gonna read it all. But I'm just gonna read the upcoming events. But what we do, if you look at the minutes, we thank all the people who do things for the, and of course thank Lisa and Jeremy and Bob and Susan and John and Sarah and Eileen and Mark. So I got them all in, I think. Anyway, coming up, I'm going to concentrate on what's coming up. But one more thing to say. Lisa has been prolific getting speakers. We match them to places. But also we have a tradition. If you have an idea for a speaker, let us know, and you get to introduce them. Yeah. And we're pretty prolific in terms of 2005 was pretty spoken for. But also we do have webinars. So if you know someone who you think is fascinating, we don't have room in our speaker slot. If we have the money, we can do a webinar with them, and it doesn't have to be always on the time of the meeting. So all of you, you know, you're all scouts for the organization, and you can introduce people. Okay, coming up, April 7th, GANYC visit to the Grow Your Club, organized by Bob Gelber. The Offmer Library, organized by Bob Gelber before the event at the Brooklyn with Russell Shorto. April 12th, Flushing History Walking Tour with Hugh Wang, native of Flushing. April 15th, the Artful Buzz Art Gallery Hop in Chelsea with Debbie Wells and Jeremy Wilcox will be there. And a couple of other things coming up. April 16th, New York Landmarks Conservancy Office, organized by Bob Gelber. Oh wow, this one's coming up again. April 17th, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Fan tour of the Woolworth building, and that's organized by Bob Gelber. It's a wonderful lobby, and so those of you who maybe didn't make it last time can come again. April 24th, Life and Death of Abraham Lincoln around Union Square, led by John Semlak, Lincoln aficionado. And May 22nd, Billion Oyster Project, organized by Bob Gelber. I know Mark is doing something again with on March 20th with Brooklyn Heights, I think. We don't have it, I didn't, that came in after the report. One more thing, cancellations for FAMs must be made 48 hours before the FAM is going. So 9:30 the FAM starts, 9:30 2 days before you should cancel. Otherwise you get hit with a $25 penalty. And we have a virtual library of FAM tours, guest speakers. This meeting is on the virtual library, so if you missed a meeting and you're a GANYC member, you have this great resource. Our next April education meeting is going to be on April 23rd. It's on Zoom at 6 p.m., so join us. Everyone is welcome. Jeremy usually hosts the meeting. Lisa does all the agenda. It's a great team, and looking forward to seeing you there.
Somebody has a question for you. Yes, my friend. Sorry, I don't know your name.
Mark Mandel.
Oh, Mark, right.
Is there a new member orientation scheduled for this Friday?
That's the membership committee.
Membership committee's gonna talk about that.
The one that wasn't on the list.
Will be there.
Okay. All right.
Not that I'm upset about.
Thank you, Dee. Okay, so, oversight, we did not actually put it on the agenda, but we're always happy to hear from Ann McDermott, Chair of the Membership Committee.
Whatever, I'm here now. We are having a membership orientation. It's going to be this Friday at the Google at the Pier 57 in their space. Thank you, Maggie Brown. She's the one that found that. And we're also going to be having a mentorship meeting in that same space on the 28th. We could use a few more mentors. If you're somebody who's been a guide for a year or two and you'd like to help out, we have 8 pairings right now, but we need a couple more for folks who are sort of on the wait list. So just think about it, contact us, and Ro will be on top of it, and she will contact you, because she's this administration, she gets it done. We have 4 new members that joined in March, so that's really good. We're working towards the goal of the 400 new members. We interviewed 7 people at the last membership round, and we're going to try to sort of see if we can have additional meetings for the membership interviews, because 7's a lot. You know, we really 6. There shouldn't be more than 6, but we're making it work. And we have 5 scheduled for this month. Member orientation. We had a wonderful event at Jasmine's. Thank you, Tony helped put that together, and it's an industry partner. Thank you, Bob and Susan. We followed through on our commitment to the industry partner, and it was a really, really nice event. And we're going to have another one at Near's Tavern in Queens on the 20th of May. And Near's is another industry partner, and it'll be nice. You know, springtime, they'll give us a little information about the history of Near's Tavern. And we had an ad hoc meeting to just discuss pairings for the mentorship. So that's it.
Any questions for Anne and the membership committee? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Anne.
I'm Lee again. At the new member orientation, so do people from GANYC speak to the new members? I mean, is it more than mingling? Does it also involve?
It's the new member orientation will have the committee chairs who will educate the new members on how GANYC functions, and in addition to giving them the opportunity to kind of share and just kind of get to know each other. But it's a little bit of combination of both, education and networking. Yep.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay, beautiful. All right.
And I just wanted to give an additional shout out to Anne. She mentioned it, but last month we had 7 different meetings, 7 different applicants we interviewed, and apparently in the coming month we have at least 5. So word is getting out there that we are doing good stuff. And in addition to the membership committee, everybody in this room, every one of our members is the best evangelist for what GANYC brings to tour guiding life and the tour guide industry. So while we may not hit our 400 for 400 goal, we are getting there, and our numbers are rising every month, and we really appreciate that. We welcome all of our new members and want them, members new and old, to get involved as much as possible. So, okay, now, as we mentioned, we are going to close this meeting with an open forum. This open forum is about the crisis, for lack of a better term, that we may be facing due to current administrative policies from Washington that are really driving a decrease in, or projected decrease in, travel to the U.S. And of course, as the #1 travel destination in the U.S., that's going to hit us in New York more than it's going to hit anywhere else. So, again, this is not an opportunity to launch a political statement or diatribe against the current administration. There are plenty of places to do that on your own, okay? We all know where we can voice our opinions about that. What we want this to be is an open, wide-ranging, productive discussion on anything that is being, in your lives, your tour guiding lives, that is being affected by the administrative policies of the Trump administration and Washington, and also what you would like to see GANYC do, because I have to be honest with you, we're kind of at a loss right now. I'm not afraid to say it, this is unprecedented territory, and you know, we're open to ideas. So what I will ask is that anybody who has any thoughts, and even if you want it to be, hey, I know I've lost 30% of my business, or you know, I have 20 clients from Canada who canceled. I know it's not a happy topic to talk about, but it's an important one for us to have a dialogue about. And if you mention something, it might spark an idea for somebody else. Perhaps you all can collaborate on something, or just share ideas on how we could kind of weather the storm. And we have plenty of time, so we will try to hear as many voices as we possibly can. And I want to talk the least. Okay, this is not being driven by the board. This is being, we want the membership to have the opportunity to talk as much as possible. So I see Jeremy has his hand up in the back. We'll start with him, and then after each comment, we'll give a couple of moments if anybody has additional questions or comments, and then we'll move on to the next folks. Again, please stand up while you are speaking. Just makes it easier for everybody in the room to hear you. So please, Jeremy, get us started.
All right, I'm Jeremy. I was already standing up, so that part was easy. So this, I don't know if there's anything GANYC could do, but I think I've been having an issue that probably a lot of people have, which is getting questions from people and potential clients that we don't know the answer to. Like, oh, I heard that there's, this tourist maybe got stopped at immigration's enforcement at the airport and they got asked for these questions, and just like what is going on. And I think we get asked these questions, and I think most of us, we don't know the answer because it's changing, and a lot of this stuff isn't official policy. So I'm just wondering, I'd be curious for that, of like how people are answering these questions when they're getting them, about like, what is there a change in policy at, like, when you get processed at airport customs?
Does anybody have any insights into what Jeremy is saying, what Jeremy is asking? Has anybody encountered something similar from your guests? Emma has? Yeah.
No, I haven't, but I was just going to speak to that. I did see there are videos and there are resources online that explain exactly what kinds of questions can and cannot be asked of you at airports and at different checkpoints. And there are lots of people with resources about knowing your rights, about what you can say or what you don't have to say if you are stopped. And I think those also apply to guests who are coming in. So, yeah, and
what you don't have to answer.
What you don't have to answer, yeah, and whether you have to. I'm trying to remember, but about, for example, like with your telephone, and I know of people who are coming to the United States, bringing burner phones, regular, or getting other SIM cards, so they don't have their personal phones, because your personal phone, your personal device, can be held and can be used, to look at what your viewpoints are. So I think, and so that's something that perhaps, now I don't have the answers right now, but perhaps we can prepare ourselves by looking for that kind of information to make sure we have that in case we are.
Yeah, and I just want to add one quick last point, which is that because, when we're on social media as tour professionals, I think we should be careful to say, particularly if we're posting it in like our business profiles, not to say anything that we are not certain about. I think as on a professional level, for us to speculate is not helpful. That's part and parcel of what I was saying. Make sure we know what we're talking about.
I'd like to make a point of order, a comment on top of what Emma just said, that on the phone issue, that if your phone does not have facial recognition or a thumbprint thing, they cannot look at your phone. They need a warrant. So you can tell people to turn that feature off before they go through customs.
But they can keep it. They can keep the phone. If they can open it, they can keep the phone with them.
No, they can't
Yeah,
open
they
it.
can.
Okay, all right, hold on, guys. We want to make this.
In case, I'll send it.
So
I have a
let
document.
Ann finish, and then Paloma, you can
I have a document I'll send out about it.
I read somewhere.
All right, Paloma, please stand up and identify yourself, please.
I read somewhere that they can keep the phone if they can open at the border. I don't know the grounds exactly, but they can keep it.
Okay, Harvey.
Harvey Paul Davidson. For those of you who may not know, I represent GANYC at New York City Convention and Tourism, and I just received an email from them the other day stating that they're postponing their June meeting. Instead, they're going to have a retreat. So I think at this retreat, they're going to come up with a strategy or say things. The next quarterly meeting probably won't be until the fall. So we're going to have to wait a while till we probably hear something from NYC plus T to come out with some information.
Okay, thank you, Harvey. Ronald.
Just in response to Jeremy's point, I think that one of the things that can, if you have clients coming in from another country, one of the things that you can suggest is that they can even delete their social media when they're actually going, I'm going to go to Europe myself at the end of the month for 2 weeks. I guarantee, and I'm a citizen, but I'm going to delete my Instagram from my phone when I come back into the country. Even though I do nothing, I say nothing but, I don't post anything negative or anything political, but I do follow many accounts that would be considered suspect. I don't think the rules and regulations, they may be posted all over the internet, but I don't really find that immigration department, people who work in immigration do not play by the rules. That, I wouldn't say that is a safe thing, but it's very easy to just take certain apps off of your phone when you're gonna go through immigration, and then, you get to your hotel, you put them right back on, you log on, and they'll go back to exactly where they were before. It's very unfortunate that we have to do this, but that's where we are.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm Dave Feldman, I'm one of your newer members.
Great, welcome, Dave.
Welcome. Thank you. So you don't think I'm a spy, I work for the U.S. Department of Justice. Because I don't know how long I have a job. And I've been doing tour guiding on the weekend. I would highly suggest as you get these resources together, that's the website. Let's collect them, let's share them, let's all be on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Gary, sorry, I'm taking notes.
That's okay. You take your notes, man. All right. I'm still Gary. And for those of you at home, I'm still Gary. So one thing that we should all remember is that, the city went through the Great Depression, which was not so great, so they shouldn't call it that. But it was a pretty bad depression. And the Empire State Building, and we all know, we all tell the same story about the Empire State Building, things that save us, King Kong opening in 1933. It's an international commercial, right? Oh my God, it's a real building. We can go up, because there's always going to be people with disposable income. There's always going to be that. Tourism did not die during the Great Depression, all right? Didn't die, so we're not going to die. There's a lot of negativity, and I believe me, this is how I sleep, right? I sleep like this, all right? And I know it's hard, but you have to remember, this city survived, we will survive, because like he always says, we're the best tour guides in the country, probably the planet, no offense to anybody from overseas. I didn't look at you specifically. It's an accident, all right? But the point is that we will survive, all right? Like I keep saying, Empire State was saved because people came to New York. Once they found out that was a real building, they can go up inside. So there's what somebody just said, I don't remember who said it, but people are fascinated by New York. They look at us like animals sometimes, they do. You know it, you don't, right? Oh, how do you live here? How many times have you gotten that question? Why do you live here? Look at that fucking view, man. That's why we live here, all right? And they're gonna keep coming back. And I'm sorry I cursed. I know we're in a church. I'm sorry, but be positive. I think that's how we have to deal with it.
Just a point of order, it is not an official GANYC meeting until Gary drops the F-bomb. Agent.
Oh, no, that was just that.
Okay. Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Gary made a good point. Tourists came during the Depression, and Mike said at the very beginning, they came after September 11th, they came after the Great Recession, and they even came after Sandy. We will survive. We will bounce back. But my question is, how do we get the Canadians to know that we're citizens?
We're friendly.
We're guides. The government is what did this to us. We're not the government. How do we get them to say they're hurting us? I know Canadians are incredibly hurt by what was said. I talked to my Canadian cousins, okay? And they're in Quebec, so they have their own issues. But they were just hurt. That's the only word I can come up with. How do we get them to understand we as citizens are still employees? We need to work in spite of whatever the government has been saying about Canadians. And that's my question.
Yeah.
I don't have a solution.
Yeah.
I don't have questions.
It's an interesting point, and I see some people who want to respond to that. I'll just say that I think this is where organizations like NYCTC will really have to start to take the lead. But, these countries, including Canada and others, I believe, are starting to issue travel warnings to their citizens as well, which is, we can put a happy face on that we're losing money because of Trump and we don't like it either. But this is gonna be something that goes way beyond us in terms of recapturing them, in my opinion. I'm not saying that small steps can't be taken, and I wanna get to everybody's hands who went up after Mark made his comment. But, you know, I think it's something that's gonna take a broad effort, and as I said at the beginning, who knows how long it's gonna take to rebuild the trust even once this current storm passes. So certainly, if people have ideas on this regard, you know, we certainly would love to entertain them, but that's something that I'm not 100% sure about. John, did you want to comment on that? I saw your hand go up.
Well, John, someone can't be. The only thing I could say, you know, like, we maybe just look to our federal roots and just say, we could push our state and local governments to try to put a different face on New York that is much more welcoming to some of these countries that, you know, are gonna, I don't know that's a long shot, and, you know, I'm sure there's already efforts like that hopefully being made, but I'm just like, that's something I would like to see a lot more of, is our governor and perhaps our mayor travel to these countries, perhaps during a, you know, some kind of, you know, some sort of effort to give us a better image.
Well, the mayor has a little more time now that he's not going to be in court. Charlie, then Sarah.
Yeah, my operative word here is pivot.
Identify yourself, please.
Charlie here, everybody. Good to see you, everybody. Pivot. If we know this is going to be a slowdown, we anticipate this trending. Pivot. Try to encourage local New Yorkers. Wait, it's going to affect people traveling abroad too. So they're probably going to say, what can we do in the United States that we don't have to spend our money, because we don't want to go into a tense environment either. So New Yorkers, we can basically try to encourage people in the tri-state area, maybe certain repackaged tours that maybe they've never seen before. There's a lot of people here that have not seen a lot of new sites in New York that have been put up, as well as other people across the country, rebranding. So again, maybe basically the same product but a different selling point. So think of it from that aspect too.
That's a great point. We actually tried to do something during COVID along those lines. It was called Tour Your Own City, back when people were allowed to go out and socialize a little bit, but there still wasn't travel. Didn't quite get the traction we were hoping for, but maybe that's something that we should revisit to see if maybe it'll get some more traction this time. Sarah.
Hi everybody, Sarah Lyons.
Hi, Sarah.
So to speak to what John was saying, to potentially give an answer, not an adequate one, but something to Mark. This year is a local election year, and there are so many horses in the race right now. Now, as a GANYC officer, I am absolutely not going to tell you who to vote for. As an individual, I have no idea who I'm going to vote for yet. But there are tons of horses in the race right now. The primaries are coming up in June. If there was ever a time to put a face on the industry and on the city that provides a welcoming face to New York, even in the turmoil of what's happening in the country, that says, hey, we will still absolutely welcome you and we encourage you to come to visit us, I think that now is the time to put pressure on all of those candidates to talk about how they are going to reinforce one of the most important industries for bringing in outside money, for paving our roads, for building our hospitals. If we really come at them saying, hey, what are you going to do for the industry that brings in money that isn't from the city, that gives us the resources we need to maintain the greatest city in the country and the world, now's the time. I think now's the time. So whoever you're going to vote for, I think now's the time for us to do our research and really press it on that, personally.
Okay, Steve.
I'm Steve Klopper. I'm fairly new. My thing that I've been telling people from overseas when they start to feel, I don't know, nervous, or they say something about the president or whatever, we in New York are not like the rest of the United States. This place is different. We welcome you, we speak your language, we eat your food, and we want you here. And I think we all agree to that. And if there's some message or some way to get that out, especially to Canadians, you come here, you won't be bullied by Donald Trump. I say. That's all I want to say. And I will say that I will confess 8 years ago at a drunken karaoke party, I did say fuck Trump on Facebook, and I'm waiting for them to come and get me now.
That's a great point, and I don't mean to keep harkening back to the past of GANYC, but for those of you who are around, when we put in the bid to host the WFTGA convention, that was done, the bidding was at the 2017 conference in Tehran. We were there 3 days after Trump announced the Muslim ban. You might remember a longtime member of ours who was on the board, Ibrahim Diallo, was with us, and we were very worried about him getting back into the country. He had no problems, thankfully. But what I wanted to bring up about that is the theme of our bid was "Come Home to New York," which fits in exactly with what you were just saying. I believe the video is still on our website. I'm not 100% sure about that, or on our YouTube page. But it is. Jeremy's giving me a thumbs up. Perhaps we can look to revive some sort of hashtag or campaign in that regard, kind of along those lines, because what you said is 100% true. We are different than anywhere else, and we certainly speak everybody's language and welcome everybody, no matter what their backgrounds are. Unfortunately, I think the issue is not with us. The issue is they don't want to give tax dollars to the U.S. government. I think that's really what it comes down to. So. Deborah.
Hi, I'm Deborah, and basically I'm just going to reiterate what was said, is they are really pissed. They're hurt and they're pissed, and the last few Canadians that I had, I said, they have an expression, elbows up, and saying that to them lets them know, the ones you do meet, that we're on their side. They want that to be heard, and they don't want to give this country money. It's really understandable, and I'm all for saying, hey, New York is not that country. I don't know how believable that is. I think letting them know that, yeah, we get it. I think that might be something. Thanks.
Great. Jeremy, then Ronald.
I want to put on, for those of you who are relatively new, I'm the chair of GANYC's PR committee, so I want to put on my PR cap for a second. If any of you know members of the press, let me or Michael know. We've tried to get press coverage for this, just like Michael and I did during COVID with you mentioned the Tour Your Own City idea he had back then. And we can get more press coverage for this. Apropos to Sarah's point, maybe it could get the attention of some of the people running for higher office on a citywide level this year. We got GANYC member Matt Levy in contact with the New York Times. He was in that Times article and on CBS News recently. So I think getting press coverage for this issue will help our cause, even if it's just increasing domestic travel into New York. So if those of you who might know a member of the press and think such a member of the press might be amenable to writing an article about this, that's a way that we can do it. And we've done that, as was noted before, on issues that have affected tourism to varying levels of success, but it's worth a shot. So that's what I want to say is, if you know a way to help us get like actual good, positive press coverage, encouraging press coverage, let us know.
Great. Ronald.
So, to bring some positive input to this conversation, I had a German group this weekend. I was with them for 4 days. At the last evening, we all had dinner together. We made it. We did the 4 days. We didn't talk about politics. Sometimes, the name of the president comes up because his buildings are in different places in the city and people are interested in that, but we didn't talk about politics. But then, when we had the farewell dinner, I was very reassured that the entire group said, well, people are still going to want to come to New York because we know that New York is different. We might not choose to go to Wyoming or Wisconsin or whatever, to the Midwest, but they were very, very happy to confirm that people are still going to be coming to New York. So let's hope that they tell that to their friends back home. They send them over here. One other thing I want to share is that I also had a couple from Indiana, teachers, middle school teachers from Indiana. I did a downtown tour with them, and we were, and no politics. At the end of the tour, we're at the African burial ground. We're down in the pit, and we just started to have this personal conversation. And I asked them, what's life like in Indiana? And they both started bawling, literally, like right then and there. And it was so moving, and I felt that what we did, the 3-hour tour downtown, and to show them a different perspective on the country and a different point of view was so incredibly important for them. So I think that helps me to keep going, and I felt really good about that. At least they had a good time, they had a break, and so that's
I think that's a really great point. I don't know if it's exactly the point we're making, but I think something we can keep in mind is that when people come on our tours, it's entertainment for them as much as it is an educational experience, and they're looking to escape a lot of what's going on right now, as we all are in our downtime. So I think that's a really, really poignant and important point to make. So thank you, Ron. AJ, this time you
actually, I don't have a question, but I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Catherine Hill has a few comments to say.
Oh, okay. Have I kept overlooking Catherine? I'm sorry, Catherine. Go right ahead. Stand up. Identify yourself.
Hi, Catherine, co-vice president. I feel like whenever we go through a downturn, it's really important, this is just on a small scale, but that we remain like ambassadors of New York. And so when people were starting to come back after the pandemic, I always thanked everyone, like, thank you for coming back to New York. You know how important this is to us. We missed you, and without you, there's no us. And I think that in terms of like meeting people from wherever, be it Canadians or people from our own country, again, being grateful. I've met people like in the past, during the first administration, Mexicans on my tour, and I just want you to know how much we're grateful that you're here, and not everybody in America feels the way certain people are speaking, and same thing about Canadians. So I had some Ukrainian women on my tour the other day, and caught me off guard because I was going around like, where are you from, where are you from, where are you from? And then they said Ukraine, and I just like busted out. Like I couldn't hold back the tears, and it took me a moment to compose myself, but I just said, and this was right after the bullying that went on in the White House, and I just said, I just want you to know, sorry, we are, because we don't feel that way. So I think if we show that we are great ambassadors of New York, and yes, we are different, that we can leave a good lasting impression. And then somebody, well, Steve said something, and someone else said something about like, maybe we could do some sort of GANYC public service announcement, like, hey, we miss you, or we want you, or we don't all feel that way, or some sort of.
We're the oddballs.
I'm sorry?
The oddballs.
The oddballs. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. We can still spread good cheer and be good ambassadors.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Emma?
I think Jonathan was going before me.
We're gonna get to everybody.
All right,
Don't worry about it.
so hi, Emma again. So I just wanted to say in terms of spreading the word, and also, New York is unique, but also I'd like you all to keep in mind, we have friends and colleagues across the United States who work in travel and tourism who are hit just as badly. And we are actually lucky because we're in New York, Flippin' City, because that's where everybody wants to go. And so friends and colleagues who work in the national parks, they are desperate. They don't know what to do because services are cut and they don't know how they're going to cope. So just something to keep in mind, that also we have colleagues around the country. And so in terms of being around the country, we have NFTGA, Gary's working with the NFTGA, the National Federation of Tourist Guides Association. I'm your area rep for the World Federation. And what World Fed is organizing is networking meetings. These are held by Zoom, when all the associations in my area, which my area is North America, is North America, the Caribbean, and Oceania, because also that works because of the time change. But that'll be an opportunity. We'll do one in June, we'll do one in October. I'm working on getting the dates now. It'll be an evening event so people can attend via Zoom, and that will be our chance to speak amongst ourselves with other colleagues around the United States. NFTGA hopefully will be there. The NFTGA members will be there. You all will be invited. It's going to be a big networking sort of session, networking event, so we can talk about these things. So something just to keep in mind is, yes, we're thinking about us, and New York is the center of the universe, but also other tour guides too. And so to be mindful of that. So when we are saying, yeah, you know, who wants to go out west? It's like, well, a lot of people did want to go out west, but now they can't because parks are closing. So something just to keep in mind with that. And so keep your eyes open for an announcement. I'm working on the dates, but we will have a networking. It'll be like a moment to speak to our Canadian counterparts. You know, their tourist guides associations in Canada that are members of the World Fed, who will come and will say, you know, look, please bring your people from British Columbia, please bring your people from Ontario, from other places. We want them here as well. And so the boycott is understandable, but perhaps putting faces to that boycott, also people will understand the impact and they'll come. So.
And just FYI, that's a great point, Anna, thank you. I'm actually gonna be having brunch with Louis Trundle, who's the president of the Montreal Guides Association. He's gonna be here in May, just on a stopover on the way to Florida, I think. But you know, he's somebody that I really connected with in Sicily at the last WFTGA meeting. And we haven't talked too much about this, you know, online or via text, but I'm sure some strategies will be discussed there, because I'm sure he's got some ideas as well. So I'm glad you mentioned that. John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to, Michael, you gave us some great statistic, well, I'm sorry, gloomy statistics at the beginning. I'm just wondering if at a lower level, are there statistics out, like, you know, drop off at the Empire State Building? Or, I know I personally don't have a very macro view of the tour world. I feel like I have less work now, but, you know, if some people here may be better informed. But, you know, like when we're at Wave Hill next month, maybe we'll ask them, are they seeing a drop off? You know, just to get a more local sense, you know, so that we can put, again, I mean, it's great, it's important to say that, you know, visitation is down by 50%, but then, you know, if we can put it at a individual venue level, that would also help, and it might drive some of the press coverage. You know, if we can say that a specific venue in New York City that has shown steep traffic, we don't want that to happen, obviously, but if we know that that's happening, maybe some press coverage could happen.
Yeah, another great point. I think a lot of that will have to be driven by NYCTC. They have the method, you know, the reach to all of these different attractions. So hopefully this retreat that Harvey was talking about will come out of that. But there's no reason why we can't ask the questions, especially if we have contacts with people in leadership in these places and find out what's going on. I will say anecdotally, it doesn't seem like things are quieter than usual in March and April right now, but that is completely anecdotal. Just in terms of people on the streets, I'm not talking about tours specifically. But yeah, I mean, the more data we have, the more case we can make. And so I think if anybody gets any leads in that regard, feel free to send them to Jeremy, send them to me, send them to the board, and we'll try to consolidate them and see what they can be used for. So I think it's worthwhile. So Gary?
I will not curse, but is there like a way, without getting political, because we don't need that, but contacting like Vancouver, Edmonton, Toronto, they have tour guide organizations, and sort of liaisoning with liaisoning? All right. There you go. All right, I can't work my phone either. So anyway, the point is that if we liaison with these people, I think that's a step, and it's like y'all been saying, we're not, this ain't the rest of this country, right? We are not, this is New York. It's a separate country. And I think at that point, it has to be hammered home to just start with the Canadian tour guide associations and move on from there.
Here you go.
So yeah, actually, I was gonna ask, I'm familiar with the Montreal Guides and the Toronto Guides Associations. Do you know of others?
Yeah, there are other guides associations in Canada, including in British Columbia. There are 2 in Toronto. There's Montreal. There's Quebec. And so, and I have, like, I'm in contact with them. I didn't know about Louis coming down. But also, just anecdotally, you asked about drop off. One World up at the observatory is chock full of Canadian groups. They're still coming. I don't know if because they were reserved ahead of time, but j'ai mon tour like every day.
Oh yeah. In the back.
I am Eva, and my suggestion is, what would it cost us, or what would be possible if we Channel 1, we conduct Channel 1, and every morning I am listening to them. We are here, and just dial the number or the email that we should put something in Channel 1, and we are waiting for you, show you the city. We have New York City licensed tour guide. Is that something like advertising us?
I mean, there's advertising, and then there's reaching out for them to do a story about tourism and tour guiding in New York.
I mean, to get
We can
it
certainly
done.
look into the cost of an ad, but New York One, I don't know, would be the place to put it, because that goes to New Yorkers. It's not reaching, I mean, certainly as Charlie
They are
mentioned.
already in the hotel and they are watching Channel 1, what's the weather going to be today?
That's true. We have had good relations, I can let Jeremy speak to this a little bit more. We have had good relations in the past with New York One, and they certainly gave us some coverage during COVID. But Jeremy, what do you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just say that I will certainly reach out to New York One. I've had a couple of contacts with them on and off. And you can still actually find this on GANYC's YouTube. Michael and I were on New York One together in 2021 when we launched Tour Your Own City, and while the project itself didn't get the reach we wanted, the best hits we got to that website came after the New York One story. So I will reach out to them and see what we can do, because they do have a reach locally, and I do know that a lot of like New York City politicians very much tune into that. But it's worth it. I would say that based on my experience as PR chair and also former treasurer, when we had done like ad buys for that stuff, we did not get a return on investment that justified the cost. I think our best bet has always been, and we've gotten the best return on value, is where we've gotten the free press, where we've gotten on PR, like during COVID, I was on Pix 11 News, Emma was on at one point ABC News, so I think that cost us nothing other than the time to make that happen. And I found that, again, when we had done paid advertising, whatever free press we got 10 times the value out of we ever paid for. And also it saves the organization money, so I will keep pressing on that front.
But the thing I think that's important for us to think about is, what is the story we're trying to tell? We can't just reach out to members of the media and say, hey, we're tour guides, we want people to come back.
I think we have to have a new concept.
Yeah.
And a positive spin.
So, one idea is the one you raised, Charlie, which is reaching out to the local market more. But it's, if we just say kind of generally, hey, we're tour guides and we welcome everybody, and isn't that great? No, as a former journalist, I can tell you, no journalist is going to get that. It's got to be a little bit more. Yeah, well, even the economic impact. I mean, first of all, we don't have numbers. I mean, GANYC does not track that. We did during COVID. If people think it's worthwhile for us to start another database for canceled tours, we can, but I think this is kind of a different situation. We were doing that during COVID to try to convince government that freelancers, which most of us are, deserve government support in terms of unemployment as well. This might be a little different, but all possibilities are out there. David, and then Ann.
Okay, so just, spitball.
Yeah, this is what this is all about.
Something like New York, what's gone on in the last 10 years, something we could start by collecting on the website, and then if it feels like it is a thing, then try to push that out to, come back to New York, to see what's in.
Okay.
We got waiting for you.
Yep. Okay, great. Ann.
So I want to make the point to follow up on what Sarah said, that the mayoral candidates will all be part of many forums that are going to be happening that different groups are going to be sponsoring. So if you hear about a mayoral forum in your neighborhood, join the Zoom or be in the meeting and bring this topic up. And also I want to welcome all the new members, because I forgot to say that in the front. And number 3 is that Tony and I are going to have like an after party thing. Where are we going, Tony?
George Keeley's.
It's called George Keeley. It is a bar, nice Irish bar, between 83rd and 83rd and 84th Street on Amsterdam, 485 Amsterdam. And it's very informal. If you want to go, let's go. We'll see you there.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. We have the room for about 10 more minutes. I'm happy to keep this going as long as we are able to. Then, of course, at the bar, conversations get more interesting. Nina?
Yeah, I was just thinking, and it's something our organization has done a couple of times. We are an international city, and we are a city of immigrants, and we could maybe highlight the different neighborhoods, the history, and I think there was some old guidelines that like focused on the French New York, Black history New York, and just Senegal in New York, or Thailand in New York, Vietnam in New York, because we have all these enclaves that are kind of mysterious in a way. We never really, as an organization, really, we have some, multilingual guys, but we never, feature that, and it would be very interesting to let people know we are a city of immigrants from the get-go, and even Native American, and really kind of maybe every month highlight something on the website, or, this is where Little Senegal is, or this is where, Jamaica, in Jamaica, there are Haitians in Jamaica, or, there are, people from, Singapore living here, or Taiwan living here, you know what I mean? So that might be an interesting way of letting people know that, hey, we're here.
Yep, that's a great idea. I will preempt what Jeremy is going to say, is that means we need you all to do that, right? I mean, it's not just going to be the PR committee or the board or people like that to get something like this going. Jeremy is always looking for content, both for the blog and the website, as well as for our social content, our social platforms. So that's a great idea. If somebody wants to do something like that, a little 90-second video or something like that about Little Senegal or any of the other ethnic enclaves here, highlighting that. That was kind of the overall theme of Come Home to New York back in 2017, but we can certainly dive a little deeper. Andrea.
Thank you. Hi, I'm
We
Andrea.
make an exception for you, Andrea.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm like semi-retired. So I was thinking to inspire people on the history of protest in New York. Uprising of the 20,000, how women, the garment workers fought for a fair wage. Stonewall, if you guys could develop tours on that and like highlight that and maybe coincide that with protests that are going to be happening. I'm always protesting. I'm a little afraid to protest right now, but there's a big one on April 5th. Yeah, the hands off. So maybe like tie that in somehow. Maybe get like the what's the group that's doing the hands? It's just called Hands Off.
Is it indivisible?
Indivisible.
Oh, okay.
To maybe have, to maybe offer a tour to prior to that to educate people, and then maybe you can get business from that or something. I'm just thinking out loud. Thank you guys.
Sarah.
So speaking to two quick things that people have already mentioned a little bit. So I think that from what I've been able to tell, once again anecdotally, the people who are first feeling the hit here are going to be tour operators. I know that I still have a lot of work, but I have one tour operator that we already mentioned, Matt Levy, who's seeing a massive drop-off in clientele as a result of what's happening, and I have another tour operator I work for that is shuddering in the middle of this month because he feels that he won't be able to weather the further drop from what he's already seen as a result of what's happened. And I'm going to email you about that, but I think we got the same email.
Yes.
So I think that it's important for us, this isn't a short-term problem, and all of the things that we're talking about are not short-term solutions, which I think is really great, but I think that we should, as a community, really focus on the long view, especially because during the last Trump administration, anti-immigration and racially hostile, I'm going to say, policies tended to bear out in a drop about a year out in terms of the work we are actually seeing, because the people who are coming now had already booked their trips.
Yeah.
So I think that this is not going to be something we solve tonight, and we shouldn't think about it that way, so I'm very glad we're all talking about long-term solutions. And the other thing is, as much as it's important to make sure we have roofs over our heads and food in our mouths, and that our hospitals and our roads are still working, I think another part of this that I want to make sure that we still have a view on is we are, by necessity, by the virtue of our industry, by the virtue of our work, we tend to be empaths and we tend to be overthinkers. And like Gary, I sleep like this. But I think that it's more important than ever that we reach out to each other. This is at sometimes a really lonely business, and that's why GANYC is so wonderful. We should be talking to each other and taking care of each other and getting coffee and knitting emotional support chickens for each other, like my mom is doing, outside of these rooms too, and it shouldn't just be us. Emma made a fantastic point that there are guides all over the country that are hurting who do not have the benefit of the good PR, the 400 years of good PR that New York City has in this respect. And there are other people in New York City that aren't in this room, that have never been in this room. I know we have a fraught relationship at best sometimes with the National Park Service, but we have to remember that they did just lose a park ranger from the Manhattan Parks and another park ranger from the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island, and current hiring forecasts say that they are likely not going to get their seasonal hires for this summer, which is going to make our lives harder at the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island, but more importantly, it's going to make their lives harder too. So even if you feel some kind of way about the Park Service in general, if you know a park ranger, reach out to them. The nice white-haired lady with a bob at Federal Hall is the sweetest woman, and she always looks a little nervous when she's coming in, but she loves having a conversation. I think that if there's ever a time for us to reach out to, if not the whole organization, then individuals in the Park Service, and get some level of comfort from each other in these times, now's the time.
Great point. Jeremy?
In the interest of time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded.
Third. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.